So if you're wanting to find out what's going on with the sun, then a really good place to go is SpaceWeather.com. It's actually operated by space scientists, and so it's a legitimate site. And they've got some interesting things on here. For example, there's the current, what's the sun doing? Right now, the sun's not doing much of anything. You can see a little bit of granulation on there, but not just a whole lot of other sort of features, no sunspots or anything. It tells you what the sun's been doing here for a while. Notice here that we haven't had very many spots this year at all. You go back a few years ago, there was no day without any spots, like one day without spots in several years. And so that would be solar max. Right now we're near solar min. There's other things that this tells you about the sun. It tells you, for example, recent X-ray flares. Right now we're at solar minimum, so we don't really expect to see a whole lot of activity here. In fact, totally dead in terms of X-ray flares. So that's not unexpected right there. Does give you, for example, also the daily neutron count. So what's going on here? This is a measure of space radiation, cosmic rays, impacting us. And we're actually, interestingly enough, at near a space since the space age near high. Planetary K index, this is what the geomagnetic activity is, and right now very little, very quiet. In fact, dead quiet as of right now, and very little fluctuation earlier in the last few days. So again, very little chance of any kind of activity even coming, and so forth. They also give you other stuff in this website, which is interesting, because while it's mainly space weather, they frequently have other sort of space-related things here too. For example, advising you that, hey, this would be a good time to go out and look at Venus. Now also, if you're going to get up looking at Venus, that's before dawn. Another thing is there's a comet visible before dawn too, comet Neowise. And so we haven't had a whole lot of great weather conditions here recently, but presumably in the future we'll have some mornings that are very clear, in which you have to go face to the east, and you'll be able to see a comet. It's not going to be super bright as it is in that picture right there. It's going to be a little bit harder to see from here, but it's going to be a pretty decent comet. And if we get clear skies, and then get further down here, recent near misses with asteroids. You notice that very recently we had a near miss that's about half the distance of the moon. There's a known asteroid that can pass about a third of the way between us and the moon. And then you get further down here, and cosmic radiation exposure to aircraft, and so the flights that tended to have the most radiation exposure, the least radiation exposure, and so forth over the last day or so. And then more information about that. And then if you really want to know more about space weather, you go straight to NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center and get, for example, exactly what's going on here with the space weather. And so currently what's happening, and again, this is solar activity right here, sunspot numbers, and you notice, and there's also radio flux down here, but the sunspot numbers and radio flux, and notice we're right at solar minimum. We are right at the point here where the next cycle should start picking up, and so that's an interesting thing that's coming. So anyway, I wanted you to be aware of this, because this is another really cool place to go to get space information.